Whenever you're ready, Shannon.
All right, I'm gonna call the Italian Village Commission to order, 4:01 PM on, what's today?
May 10th.
May 10th. Our next business meeting will be Tuesday, May 31st at 12 PM in this room. And our next hearing will be Tuesday, June 14th at 4 PM in this room. Can I swear in staff? Swear to tell the whole truth to the best of your ability?
I do. Jacqueline Lamb, Assistant Historic Preservation Officer.
We swear in Belkis or?
Karen.
Okay. And then roll call commissioners, David,
David Cook.
Shannon Burgess.
Good.
Brooke Michael Smith.
Perfect. Approval of, or we don't have a public forum.
We do not have a public forum.
Okay. Approval of staff approvals, starting on page, looks like 7. 779 Summit Street, 295 East Fifth.
I think we're approving the minutes. from the previous meeting.
That's after staff approvals. That's what this says. Okay, so do I have a motion to approve staff approvals?
So moved.
Second? Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, motion passes. And then do I have a motion for the minutes from the last meeting, April 12th?
So moved.
Second? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
I have to abstain because I wasn't at.
Okay. All right, motion carries. So it looks like we had approved, are we on application number
4.
4? So we've got 851 North 4th Street. You guys come on up. All right, we'll start just by swearing you in. If you could raise your right hand, state your names for the record.
Fairwood House, Taylor Church.
Swear to tell the whole truth to the best of your ability.
Yes.
All right, staff.
Okay, so this application is proposing to install a 42-inch tall black aluminum fence and gate. The fencing and the gate would be 160 inches wide, would be located at the intersection of East First Avenue and North 4th Street at the north side of the property along the patio. At the April 26th business meeting, the commission noted that while the area is on a residential street, they wanted to be consistent with corner lots and primary streets. The commission noted they were not supportive of the privacy fence at this location, and that they would be okay with iron fencing lower in height with a maximum height of 42 inches, and believe that an iron fencing would be especially appropriate at this location based on the simple, shorter railing at the front of the building that already exists. The commission was not supportive of the curved arches or extra detail, noting the style should be simple, straight lines like the existing railing. And the commissioners noted they'd be okay with moving to staff approval and the fencing would be iron, no more than 42 inches in height, and simplified straight line style without ornamentation. And noting that if this option was not amenable to the applicant, that the applicant could remain on the agenda for the main hearing. The commission recommended using a wrought iron fence at the corner location to avoid creating a visual separation. So in response to the business meeting feedback, the applicant has submitted the revised application. The proposed black aluminum fencing has been changed to the community recommended height of 42 inches. It was previously taller. And then the fence will not be a full privacy fence and will also be simple in style following the commission recommendation. So staff recommends approval of application ID 2205 851 North 4th Street. To be submitted with any clarifications to staff for final review and approval certificate, with the condition that the fencing material follow any commission recommendations. And that recommendation is based on the city code standards for site improvements, and the Italian Village guideline fences and enclosures, page 16. And then the standards for site improvements, specifically letters A and B.
All right, before we get to you, just let the record show that Mr. Sudi has arrived.
Here.
Will now be sharing, but go ahead.
So after we had the last meeting while we were here and heard what you all are interested in, we took a look around our neighborhood based off of your guidelines. And there is a lot of aluminum fencing and not wrought iron fencing. Most of those aluminum fencing is commercial, but some of them is residential as well. Just 2 blocks from us on the corner of Summit and First, we're on the corner of 4th and First. So 2 blocks from us on the corner of Summit and First is almost an identical setup of what we have, same type of road, same type of residential that's around. And we're just looking to stay consistent with what the neighborhood has.
So before I turn it over to folks, one thing to note is that it's probably not a good idea to, go looking around the neighborhood. Oftentimes folks might have installed things that weren't approved. So just because they have something doesn't mean it would be appropriate in your circumstance. So it's, which I know isn't always fair, but that, those are most likely installed, without approval. But with that, David, you want to start?
I'm going to abstain.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't know what the other conditions are, and obviously we see a lot of aluminum. The nice thing about the iron is that it just lasts much longer. It's sort of an investment to the neighborhood, and we see a lot of folks that kind of short shrift that compared to what can be done. I think one of the reasons I would support iron and wonder is because it's so close to a residential property, but I'd like to hear before we're done just why you feel like you need to have aluminum instead of iron, which is such a nicer quality kind of material and good for the neighborhood.
Before you respond, let's go to Brooke.
I don't have a lot to add, but I would ask the same questions about why the aluminum versus wrought iron. And the application says a 48-inch tall black or wood privacy fence. But the documents are based on your aluminum choice. I see that, so that's the direction you're headed. So I would ask, it is such a superior product, not just, to support the neighborhood in that level of quality, but your property as well. So same questions.
So the only reason we did go looking around is because of the guidelines, the Italian Village guidelines that stated, for fences to be compatible with adjoining areas. So we did look around just to see, and we did find a lot of aluminum, which in my opinion would make it compatible with other businesses around the area. While iron is stronger and typically a nicer design, aluminum is strong and it's easier to maintain. It doesn't rust, doesn't give off that, that brown kind of yucky appearance. And it's significantly cheaper for the applicant. The purpose for this fence is, not to make the property look pretty. It's for security for the customers of Woodhouse that come in, to avoid people coming into their patio, freely and possibly stealing some of their items that they have out there that are quite expensive, such as their fire pit. And just to keep their patrons safe and their property safe.
I think you kind of lost me there because I think that the iron's going to be much more secure anyway. But we're only talking about a 42-inch fence, and things are going to have to be secured in other ways also, I think, in either case. So I guess what I'm lost on is how approximate the other commercial properties are. So I'm sorry, get your way.
That's great. Yeah, I understand what you're saying. I think we're making a pretty concerted effort to try to shift away from aluminum fencing when we can, especially on smaller scale residential scale properties, which you do have. You kind of have the ultimate case for a more sturdy fence, in my opinion, because you both have a residential scale property, but you also have a highly commercialized adjacent use. And I think the places we've seen the most problems, well, there's kind of a lot of problems. I mean, I just saw it again on Fourth where someone like, seemed like they, slightly went into an aluminum fence and collapsed two sections of it, because that's what typically happens. It's just not that durable. So I think one of the problems here, I used to live right down the street, is people are gonna bang into it all the time. Because you're going to be in this circumstance where you're wedged between a bunch of people coming in and out of an active patio. You're moving stuff in and out of there all the time from a commercial perspective, and people are gonna be walking right down the sidewalk. So for me, this is sort of the ultimate use case to not have it be a fence that wouldn't be more durable. From a durability standpoint, I'd actually prefer wood to aluminum. I just don't like the look of it because I think it would create a backyard kind of feel. Whereas you have a weird spot where you're taking a commercial corridor and you're wrapping it into a residential street with a commercial patio. It probably happens somewhere else, but I honestly can't think off the top of my head where it happens. So it's kind of an unusual spot. And sometimes when things are a little bit unusual, that begs for the best treatment possible. So I understand your concern about the cost. I think in this case, even more so than if it was set back from the road or if it was just an ornamental fence that was bordering on some landscaping. I think this is a functional piece of what you're trying to do. So in my take, I would rather have it just stay as vegetation rather than put in a fence that's probably going to get dinged up and damaged, which I'm almost 100% sure aluminum will, because it's just not that sturdy. Someone falls into it.
Yeah, the vegetation just doesn't keep
No, I
the
understand.
people out. I mean, we have an ice cream shop right across from us. And we, despite the signs that we put up, can't keep their tenants from coming to sit on our patio, which takes away from our
Sure,
customers allowed to sit. There's residential units on top as well too. And we'll come down and there'll be homeless people sleeping on our picnic tables. We came down and into that area and there was a homeless person going to the restroom in our garden beds. We're really just looking to have something that will keep people out, and we're looking to be cost effective. We're a small business. We have no outside investors. It's my sister and I. We started 4.5 months before the pandemic hit, which wasn't a beautiful time to start a restaurant. And we want to protect the things that we have. We also have produce and items that are being dropped off on that back there. Sometimes we're not there to bring those in and they know to leave them on the back. We just want to secure the items that we have. We want a fence that's high enough and we want something that is affordable for us. We're renting from Kevin Likens. Anything that we put in, he gets to keep. So we're interested in not investing in something that we can't really take with us when we leave.
Just a real quick question. It looks like it's steel or something on the front for the railings and everything. Is that correct?
It is a little bit thicker. It's not a wrought iron. It's not aluminum. It is a bit thicker of a fence. Directly across the street from us at Hope Hearted is aluminum.
Yeah.
On the corner is aluminum as well. And I think your name tag's not flipped around, so I can't see you with the dark glasses.
Ben.
Oh, wait, actually, it might have been you, Jason, that said it. On the corner of along the 4th Street corridor, you saw that there was some aluminum fences that had been knocked down.
Yeah.
They took those out
Okay.
specifically, and they're redoing that
Fair.
fenced-in area to create some additional space for their community to park.
Fair enough. I've definitely seen plenty of cases where they've been kinked and crunched and smashed and all kinds of things. You just don't really see as much with. I mean, it's up to you what you want us to vote on. My take is I would prefer that you did even a more. I mean, first preference is to do something that is iron that matches the front railings that are on here. That's durable and would be sufficient to maintain what you need to do on that side.
Mhm.
Second, I would prefer that you found a non-privacy version of a wood fence rather than doing a aluminum fence. That's my take.
Yeah, and we are open to that as well. It was something that the last meetings.
Yeah, I
said that they
don't
weren't
prefer
interested
it.
in. And we have a wooden fence. Can I come up and show a couple photos?
Yeah.
Yeah?
Sure.
So we have a wooden fence in the back of our area as well too. So you guys can see that we've got like a full wooden fence back here. So we are definitely interested in potentially creating a wooden fence in the front. This is the area I was talking about that's just 2 blocks from us. These are both commercial, and you can see the drastic difference between the two. One is wrought iron and one is aluminum. And so to stay consistent in the neighborhood, I mean, you also see this directly across the street from us. This is Hoof-Hearted Brewing. They use ultra aluminum fencing.
And I don't think it's been particularly successful over there. I think that's one of the issues that we're running into is that there's some degradation that happens. And that's why we're trying to push for a higher standard where we can have interaction.
And this is brand new as well too. This is completely. and
Yeah, that
76
makes more sense to me, even though I love it, but it makes more sense the fact that it isn't in street adjacent area. So I hear what you're saying.
And if they wanted to explore a wood fence.
Yeah, so I
they
would
would come
maybe.
back to us.
I think staff, what we're looking for is some of the transparency, not a backyard style wood fence. At least for me, I don't know what everybody else is thinking.
Right. it's not-
Maybe everybody else hates wood.
The guidelines of the board for the
Right.
visual separation.
That's just my thought, but if everybody else is a totally different direction, that's fine.
Yeah, I think I'm concerned about what kind of colloquial kind of wood fence that we end up with.
Yeah, I hear you.
And they'd come back.
Yeah. I think there's an awful lot of precedent too. I mean, it's not a very big fence. I think a lot of those cases that we've let slide by just because of not paying enough attention for sure. And now we're starting to pay more attention. And while I get the economic hardship, that it's really not very much fence compared to some sort of situations where we have lots and lots of footage, but it just seems
Also
to
looking to do like a gate itself, which the cost of a gate is more expensive than just a fence in and of itself. So to have someone do a wrought iron fence for us is $8,000.
I'm a little surprised that the landowner won't chip in on this, but because
Kevin Likens.
so I can't really get into the politics of that, but I just think that there's a lot of precedent for doing iron, both in terms of what we've been trying to accomplish and because of what's on your property, and it's not a very long run, but
I mean, whatever you guys, somebody wants to make a motion.
I'm happy to continue, but I'm not sure that wood is going to be the right solution either.
So are you saying that you would
Yeah,
be in support of aluminum, or I'm kind of under?
I am not supportive of aluminum, I'm just not supportive, happy to let them explore wood if that's.
Gotcha.
So are there some wood fences that maybe we could point them to as
Good figure
good
that out.
precedents?
Actually, Likens installed one in the Edison down the street from you all. I think that there's a non-privacy wood there.
Yeah, I think you're right.
There may be. The one on the main street is privacy, but I haven't ventured around that property.
Yeah, there's like a few. Yeah, and there's like some backyards we've just DeCento. I think maybe we did a non-privacy wood back there.
And how, this thing is very tall, isn't it?
The what is tall?
This isn't very tall fence, is it?
42 inches.
Oh, I mean, that gives you some more flexibility too, because he's pretty short.
We would like for it to be 48. 42 is just, it's not, you can step over a 42-inch fence. So, those 6 extra inches would be ideal. But we resubmitted for the 42 per the board's suggestion. Because we would like to get this in. But we really would like for it to be 48. Well, I move to continue the application.
Well, let's ask him.
Okay.
Are you okay with continuing to explore those other options, or we can vote on what you have proposed as well, because that is certainly at your discretion too.
The difficulty in waiting is that it's another month to get in. And we're looking to secure the property immediately. As the weather warms up, we have more and more people entering our patio in unsafe conditions. And we're looking to create some privacy for our guests as well too. I would like to potentially explore a different option. It would be great if we could all agree on aluminum, so we wouldn't have to move back to this, or even something that is steel, but a wrought iron fence is not in the availability for us.
Yeah, I mean, I think it could be steel as well, my perspective. That's what's on the front of the building right now. Chest to have to be maintained. So I don't know if people are okay with that.
I'm not sure there's a true difference, but I'm happy to define it as both so that you can have more flexibility for perhaps vendors that we're not aware of. But I think the key is going to be that it's actually a solid bar as opposed to hollow bars, because you can see steel fences occur in these very thin gauge kind of tubes that you get at Lowe's and so forth, and they don't hold up. So,
Can you turn your microphone?
so it's, when we talk about steel, I think we're talking about either a heavy gauge wall, or we're talking about, a solid bar.
Yeah, and staff, are you comfortable with understanding that distinction? Yeah. And I think if we're really just trying to get them to match what's on the front of the building right now, it doesn't have to be decorative or elaborate. I'm just trying to get the same material that's out there, because that's durable, it's a handrail and all that.
Yeah.
So I'm okay with that, and then, I mean, I'd be okay putting into the motion, they could come up with that with staff, or they can come back if they want to propose a wood style.
Yeah.
Does that work for you? Does it work for you?
Technically, I mean, if we're voting on it, then they've got an approval and they can come back with a separate
Yeah,
material
right, sure.
application anyway, right? If they want it.
Right.
So, well, I could make a motion to that effect. I mean, basically what you're hearing is that it sounds like the commission, without taking the vote yet, is fairly strongly feeling for the steel kind of approach. And I'm inclined to make the motion in that direction. And I'm just hoping that you will kind of feel the importance of that. But if you feel like you need to find a different kind of material, that you can always come back future application. So with that said, I'm going to move on application IV 22-05-004 to approve the application as submitted here tonight, with the exception that we are specifying that the fence material be made out of iron or steel. And by steel, we're talking about solid rod kind of construction, as opposed to thin gauge tube construction like you might find in a retail product from home.
Or a thicker wall. I think we leave that to the discretion of staff, because I'm sure the stuff on the front is.
Or thicker wall.
Yeah.
And so, and of course, that, we understand that leaves open the option to the applicant to come back with wood solutions.
And where can we find some options for wood fencing and what would be approved?
Yeah, talk to staff about it. Staff will help work through that. We can obviously, we're happy to bounce ideas.
We can move this forward.
Well, we've got a motion, so I don't know how else we could be moving it.
Second,
Yes, go ahead. I'll second.
I second.
Oh, you second.
Because I'm
You're
still
right, so I
tricky.
get to second.
Right, sorry, got confused as to who's doing what.
I'll second.
All in favor? Opposed? All right, motion
Okay.
carries.
Thanks. I know it's kind of cumbersome, sometimes it's confusing, but we're trying to work our way toward a better neighborhood. One
Same.
bit at a time.
We
So we
appreciate
appreciate you being there. It's great, great place.
Thank you. We'd like to stay.
Okay, so am I back?
Yeah.
Okay. IV 22-05-006, 804 to 806 Summit Street, please.
Oh, yes, we are skipping over to number 7.
Oops.
I just want to confirm with the applicants. I know for the Jeffrey Park, there's 3 grouped applications. I might have wanted to switch.
Just the next two.
Just the. Okay, yeah, so we are on number 7,
Okay.
Cornelia Street.
Sounds good. IV 22-05-008. It's, and if you gentlemen can raise your right hands and state your names for the record.
Christian Positive Friends. Matt Negron.
And you promise to tell the truth in your testimony to the best of your ability this afternoon.
Yep, I do.
Okay, great. So we'll have staff give a report first.
Okay, this application is proposing a new park at Jeffrey Park, located at the corner of Cornelia Street and on 6th Street, for the submitted documentation. At the April 26th business meeting, the commission noted that they were very supportive of screening the transformers, asked about trees and whether some will be evergreen, including for better screening of the transformers year-round. The commission asked if the applicant would consider adjusting planting materials for winter plants, particularly around those transformer boxes. Asked about parking and whether the parking would be free or have meters, noting that if meters, they would like to see coordination with public service to cluster freestanding post structures, which often pepper the walkways and avoid impeding the pedestrian areas. And overall, the commission noted that this to be a good proposal and asked that the applicant come in to flesh out the discussion during the hearing, since this is an important spot. And then, additionally, the commission encouraged that large trees become part of the economic space in their own right, and they will be interested to hear further details when the applicant comes in. So staff recommends approval of application IB 220508 Cornelia Street as submitted, with any clarifications to be submitted to staff for review and approval prior to issuance of a certificate. And that recommendation is based on the city code standards for site improvements, and just generally the standards for site improvements.
All right, over to you guys.
Yeah, so just to talk a little bit, the details of some of the comments that were made. I know we came in for conceptual application, and then with this being our final, a lot of the feedback that we've received is positive, which is great. Some of the things regarding the parking, that's something that we are willing to work with the city on, but these are public streets. So how they're metered and how they're handled is not really necessarily our decision. We'd like for that to be a little bit more open on the north side specifically on the north side of the park. But we are willing to talk with the city and try to work that into their planning.
So I'm just to be clear, sorry, I lost the thread on that just a little bit while I was messing with this thing. So it's about not having parking meters that we're talking about?
City just announced they're getting rid of it.
Yeah, because we're not gonna have any, so.
Yeah.
We're all set.
Cool. Details on the park. Jump in.
So before you go, I mean, there's still signs.
There'll be signs, yeah, sure.
Right.
They're not going to be at every space. though.
But there won't be individual meters. There'll be-
And so if there's an opportunity to kind of visualize how lighting posts or some other posts that might be emerging end up in approximately the same place where don't park from here to the corner kind of thing. Could be an opportunity. So I think we'll say in some cases, we want to enforce or sort of impress on bigger developments like this, the opportunity to reduce the amount of posts that are going in the ground. Know that everybody feels like there's nothing you can do about it. But if we get together, we can do something about it.
Sure. And a lot of these streets around Jeffrey Park specifically, there are just no stopping signs. And that has been what the city has pushed us towards as far as signage for parking. Although this falls under the Short North Parking District, it is enforced a little bit differently than areas around. But I mean, we originally designed this park with the green spine coming straight down into this. So having the main entranceway into that localized and really that north center of the park is what we're hoping for. And ideally, we would have no parking in front of that, and that's something that we're pushing for. Our concern is based on comments that we've received from our civil engineer and talking with floating the ideas from the city, is that they're requesting that we do an e-plan to do anything on the tree lawn portion of tree lawn sides of the north end of the building to do any improvements on that. But we're willing to work with them it is our goal to have limited parking on that side of the park, because it just enhances our ability to have any type of event or to utilize it a little bit more.
We may have derailed your presentation.
Yeah.
So keep going.
Details on the park.
I think you'll find that, pretty much everything kind of stayed more or less the same from what we presented conceptually as far as sort of layout and kind of refining some of those details. We do have a, planting list associated with everything on here. We were in full agreement that we want to have a variety of large deciduous shade trees within the park space. So that it feels a little bit more like some of the other park spaces, that you would have in an older city established park. We have a few accent trees kind of along the oval, and then some more ornamental trees kind of mixed in with some of the planting bed just for some year-round interest. We do have, one of the things that we discussed were kind of screening those transformers in landscape. And so we've got them in a pretty substantial landscape bed. I will say that the renderings don't show the full scope of what the plant material is. It's just kind of an approximation for tree location and where the planting versus turf is. The landscape sheets are more accurate and detailed in what the material is there. We do have kind of bigger kind of swaths of juniper and evergreen shrub to kind of do that. We unfortunately can't really put shrubs and things along the street side of things by code. That those need to be open. So from the park side of things, we do have a larger evergreen that is to help screen those. The other thing is that we have a lot of ornamental grasses that range in the 24 to 3 foot or taller range. And our hope is that those, we like to see those up through winter and get cut down more in the sort of like early March. So that's a very short window when you don't have vegetation screening those transformers. We do not have any evergreen trees, but we do have evergreen shrubs. And then we do have a few trees that are semi-evergreen. And then there's also bayberry in there, which is semi-evergreen. So there are a variety of different types of plant material that we are trying to think year round so that there is interest throughout the season.
I can jump in real quick and then pass it off. Yeah, I was out there the other day. This is just so big. It's just such a shame that that's where they ended up. That being said, I'm assuming, because there's some kind of janky ones left out there now, like a pole with something on it. I'm assuming that'll all go away and just be in boxes like the ones that are out there. So it's kind of like a brownish color now, I think, which seems fine.
Yeah, I mean, I think if we're able to, I don't know what all the ins and outs are, but if we could get them to be all the same darker color to go away,
Yeah.
that will help as well.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking. If they're all the same, kind of get a greenish brown out. Obviously, it's just like, a bare lot, so they seem extremely,
So those exist already?
almost all of them. Yeah.
What does that mean? Two of them
Well,
exist?
there's one or two that, no, bunch of them, but there's one or two like poles with crooked metered poles that look pretty preliminary. And I don't know if that means there'll be another box or do you know if all the boxes are officially out there?
I don't think that there's going to be a major addition.
Okay.
It's just going to be really probably maintenance of what's there, what exists.
So yeah, if we could just make sure, obviously you're gonna want to do it too, to figure out how to get rid of that remnant of chickens inside a box of some sort. So yeah, they're out there. They're all standing out there, and that water building's out there too, which they've really diminished here, but it feels really big on the site because there's nothing else out there. Anyway, I gave my comments last month. I think you got a really nice design. I like the mix of large trees, oaks and tulip trees, play and all that. Yeah, I'm just looking forward to seeing it be realized. Now that we've got buildings going around, it used to not be noticeable. Now I wouldn't say it's an eyesore, but it certainly doesn't look great. So. David?
I'm very comfortable with what you've done and in favor of it. Could we go back to the plan that shows one more aerial view? Okay, hold that just a minute. I am appointed or nominated by the Italian Village Society, and monthly I do give reports of what happens to the society. And I spoke positively about what we had seen, but that we had asked you to consider some evergreen material, and I will be able to report back that, yes, you've listened to that. But something they specifically asked, and I don't think it's going to affect our vote tonight, but it needed to be voiced. They're saying, as residents of Jeffrey, that there are so many pets, dogs that are urinating on bushes, that there's a major problem of killing a lot of the vegetation in the area. And their concern was, is this going to be dog friendly? Or what about considering this lower green belt, almost at the south end, that grass field over on the other side, right there? Can there be some discussion, and I was asked to bring this forward to you, it isn't going to affect tonight, but have you thought of trying to create some dog designated park? Is it the band that's along the railroad track, or Could you respond to that? It was a specific request of the society to bring that to this meeting.
Sure, yeah, so at our Phase 8 project, we do have a dog park located at the southern portion, southern tip, which is kind of that green area in this of, right there on the southwest or east side
Good,
of
okay,
the Phase
good,
8 building.
good.
So as far as things with Phase 10, we still, and I think this is a reaction to our, when we were going through the site compliance plan with Phase 9, is we are still working with ODOT to determine what our actual footprint is going to be for Phase 10.
Gotcha.
Because of the issues that are created with
Could be a rather dark slope.
So, yeah, but you're talking about the other corner, right?
Yep.
Southeast corner?
Yep.
Okay, that.
That
one.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Okay, good. So I will just report back that there is discussion about it in a later phase. Let's go back to, will this be dog friendly, this park, or will there be some sort of encouragement that there's not pets in the park? Or-
So this is going to have similar rules to what Columbus City Parks has with dog policy. So this will be owned not by Thrive, this is going to be owned by the New Community Authority. So in all sense, this is going to be a publicly owned park, but I mean, it's our preference to keep it open for dogs and to keep the policy that I can't remember what it is exactly in public parks around Columbus, but something on the leash, something of that nature. I will say too, the thing that helps, it works in our advantage, is that this isn't irrigated. Everything out here is going to be irrigated, and that does help to
Dilute the
it does, and
toxicity.
you don't get that in a lot of other public parks that are unirrigated. We also, I know, one of the women from the IBC neighborhood, asked about, certain boxwoods or things out there that were an issue, and we don't have those out here. She thought maybe that had something to do with dogs peeing on them, but I think it's a number of environmental things. So we also have a lot of the perennial grasses and things that we have in these plant beds will handle dog urine a lot better than shrubs.
Thank you.
Okay, anybody else comments? Brooke?
I think it's lovely. I was just looking at trying to make sure you had enough trash receptacles. I think you do. As far as the dog thing goes, that doesn't seem to be an issue in Schiller Park, and there are hundreds of dogs in Schiller Park. So maybe it is the plant material. That said, I will say we have boxwood in front of our house, and they do suffer from that. So maybe it is a boxwood thing. But I think this is lovely. And one other question: how is the shelter drain?
I believe it is an internal gutter system or something to that effect. I know that is something that we have addressed with the architect on there, and so it shouldn't be. I don't believe that there's like another gutter or something that you would see.
Right. That's a good question.
Thank you.
Ben?
I am 85% on board, but two things. Signage is a problem from my perspective. So what we're looking at here, this particular image, for example, is not a full sign solution. And I do think you need to think beyond that in terms of where the rules and regulations of this side of the park are going to be located. So it feels like it's integrated and not just, staked into the ground randomly like so many times happens. So think about integrated design with respect to signage. The other things, I am not as satisfied with the whole building structure thing. I think painting these things brown is just rolling over and just allowing things to happen. And so in my mind, instead of some sort of vanilla, I can't do anything about it kind of solution, I think that it should be either an architectural screen wall that conceals the buildings.
Are you talking about
I'm talking about talking about in the plan view, the
utility
boxes and so forth. And I wasn't quite sure if the water building had been built yet, but obviously these things been sweet if they'd all been clustered together. But that being said, if that some sort of screen that faces the street, I think is appropriate. I think on the east side, having vegetation screen is probably enough, and since it's further away from the sidewalk. The counterpoint to that would be just to go full bore art on it, and I see that there's a rendering of mural type graphics on that water building. And I know this is not going to set well with all commissioners, but I don't understand why we don't just celebrate the boxes as they are, convert them to art, and instead of just this brown gray thing, instead of things. Either that or find some other, pergola or some other kind of structure that conceals, what it is en masse. So if we can't get those things, a nod from you on those things, then probably no.
So is the suggestion to further screen those utility
I
boxes?
can wait until
Oh, yeah, sorry, let's hear.
So I think that screening them is a safety issue in public park. It's not put a fence up for someone walking their dog at night to be able to be jumped out at. So it's kind of subject issue there. So I would be in favor of covering them with art, that's fine. But I think additional screening is absolutely, from a safety standpoint, not appropriate in a public park that is in a residential neighborhood. In terms of signage, I do agree that that the sign is kind of uninspired.
It is not the final.
Okay,
That is,
yeah, that can come.
that was just kind of a placeholder. I do know that the intent is to, again, pull from the Jeffrey Mining Company to kind of pull inspiration of historical reference from signage and lettering and all that. I think at the time we weren't even sure what the name for anything of the park was going to be. So it was just kind of a nod that it'd be nice if the signage was maybe integrated into the structure, or as you said, Ben, something thoughtfully integrated. So at this point, it was a placeholder.
Yeah, it could be in the landscape wall or the walkway or anything like that.
Sure.
So
Yeah.
Are you suggesting Fergus Park? Is that what you're saying?
Well, obviously.
Yeah, clearly.
I think I would agree with Ben that it might be good for you to explore, excuse me, I'm losing my voice, some type of art on the utilities. I don't know if it's, I know like Columbus it's just now starting to let you do street boxes, so I'm not sure what
So-
we could do for that.
Yeah, I'm not excited about that idea, but I'd be willing to see some options. Feel like, just kind of been trying to pay attention to these things in the last little while. And I feel like when they're standalone on a corner, kind of part of the urban streetscape and they have art on them, they tend to have a little bit more success. My take is I want them to be as invisible as possible. I don't feel like this is a case to create any more visibility than we can with this great park behind it. I think they're more additive, but it's kind of a weird quirky thing on an urban street. So I'm sympathetic to what everybody's saying. What I would propose maybe for today, since we seem to have pretty strong agreement throughout, is if we wanted to make a motion that I know it's a little inconvenient, but I don't think it kind of derails your plan if we just sort of carve out, basically approve the rest of the park, except for that area right around those utility boxes. And maybe you could look into some options that would include, sympathetic again to Shannon's concern about safety, if there was some sort of version of, if it wasn't necessarily fencing, if there was something.
The challenge with that is that we can't put anything
Too
in-
close.
You can't. So
Right.
there's no room along the street to be able to put any vertical,
Right.
because those doors open towards the street. And you have a 10-foot
Yeah.
minimum that you can put a structure. So that doesn't work. So the thought from what we kind of discussed during the conceptual review is, and I kind of sort of took the words out of my mouth as far as how we tend to think about a lot of these utility boxes is in an urban environment when they're in hardscape. I think, treating them in an artistic way makes a lot of sense. Our feeling is that since we do have the ability to use landscape to our advantage, it's not something that you're ever gonna make disappear, but we live with, utilities everywhere in the world. And there's gonna probably almost always be cars parked along that street in front of them anyway. So our hope was to really treat the park side of it as best we could with landscape to kind of make them just kind of go away and not draw more attention to them. The water meter building, it's a brick construction. It felt like it maybe had more opportunity to have an art element. But that was kind of the progression from what we had discussed during the conceptual review to now.
Since we're flying blind on this a little bit today, would you be comfortable with us just pulling that out, just an opportunity for you to look at what art could be like there? Is I'd be convinced, and we also then can take a look around and see if there's things that could work for us.
It's fine.
Okay. Everybody else comfortable with that?
I could get comfortable with it.
What do you think? Okay, in that case, can I have a motion?
I move on application 22-05-008 Cornelius Street Park to approve as submitted here tonight, with the exception of the planting area around the utility boxes that we'll just kind of define as what you have as ground cover areas, so we can just talk about that in the future meeting in terms of how it could be better integrated and be a more appealing kind of solution for the streetscape as well as the park environment. And that signage is to come back to us with for further final review with the encouragement that it's an integrated approach to the way you see your park.
And the artwork idea for the brick building.
You accept that?
Yes.
Okay, and do you second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, motion carries. Thanks a lot. Appreciate it. Thanks for our work on that. And then you are staying for the next one. Is that right, Steph? We're going back to 9 or 09? Or up to 09?
Yes, I believe this, reference is to jump to number 9, is that correct?
Yes.
Number 9 or 009?
No, over the 9.
Okay, I guess they're both for the same address, so.
So we're looking at,
The billboard and the mural application.
Okay, gotcha. So we're doing number 9, which is IV 2205010.
Correct.
Okay, cool. Okay, you're already good. If you two gentlemen will raise your right hands and state your names for the record.
Randall Sistrunk, Mark Thompson.
And you promise to tell the truth and best of your ability in your testimony this evening.
Yes.
All right, great. So staff.
This application is proposing a request for action, including conceptual approval for the digital billboards. And that would be for placement, size, and a general concept with the final details of how the signage will be affixed to the building, for example, to come back for final approval. The proposed work includes the installation of the 2 digital billboards on the east elevation of the mixed-use structure at 299 Davidson Street. The digital billboards would display video and still images, and to install 3 art murals on the south elevation of the parking garage. The murals would be printed on vinyl mesh anchored to the garage facade. The proposal consists of the 2 exterior LED billboards, which are focused on off-premise advertising, and the 3 murals. The Italian Village guidelines do prohibit off-premise graphics, internally illuminated signage, and signage over 25 square feet. So since the proposed billboards are off-premise graphics, are to be internally illuminated, and are to be between 1,175 and 983 square feet, larger than the maximum allowable area for signage. Proposal for the LED billboards, therefore, does not meet the guidelines with regard to the signage and graphics guidelines. The staff notes that art should not be contingent on approving advertising, and that the proposed billboard locations may be a good opportunity for additional artwork. At the April 26th business meeting, the commission noted that the applicant will need to bring information about how they can keep the billboards more art focused. The commission noted that over 100 windows face the proposed billboard location on the right, and that some commissioners were not comfortable with that location being a billboard. Some commissioners noted that the billboard shown with the man at the rendering seemed more appropriate in location than a billboard showing a woman. And while not opposed to having two billboards, the billboard should be closer to the south side of the building. Some commissioners noted the east-facing sign should be art programmed and permanent, and that the commission was generally supportive of the garage graphics. Since the billboards do not meet the guidelines in regard to their significant increase of size compared to the guidelines, their off-premise advertising, as well as the internal illumination, staff recommends continuing application ID 2205010 299 Dickinson Street to allow the applicant time to revise the application. And that recommendation is based on the Italian Village guidelines for signage and graphics, as well as the Ohio Graphics Code section for advertising on interstate highways, the section under murals, and then the I-670 area of special graphics control.
Okay, great, thanks.
Cool.
Over to you.
So this is a follow-up to our conceptual application, which was in March. So this is Phase 9 development, which consists of a 490 space garage, which is under construction today, 177 units, unit apartment building just to the north, and then 100,000 plus or minus square foot office building to the east. So this concept is a result of kind of a lot of the conversations that we've been having around Jeffrey Park with art installations, specifically the corner of 4th and 1st, which we're actively looking at today. 3 art locations in the park, which you all saw, 2 of which are sculptural, 1 is a mural, and then obviously this application, which the southern side of this building with 3 larger art mural installations. So in each of these conversations, we've talked through the fact that it is our intention, and we've already started that process of working with the 4x5 SID and helping us navigate through what this art program, or helping us navigate through the art installation portion of these public art. And so with this project, looking at kind of a fresh look and looking at all of the garage screening around the city, in working with Orange Barrel, we were just trying to look at this site a little differently. I mean, it is a very unique location in that it is the southernmost tip of not only Italian Village, but our development. It's outward facing, facing a major highway with a lot of exposure. So trying to think creatively with this, Orange Barrel had come to us with a really unique program that they've initiated around the US and successfully done, specifically in Hollywood, California, as well as a few other locations. And so this plan today consists of 2 video boards as well as 3 large art murals on the garage portion. We understand that there is still more to this process that we have to get through, such as I think there were some comments regarding ODOT, but this is the first stop for those conversations. So I'll turn it over to these guys to talk a little bit more about the art program, a little bit more about these video boards.
Thank you. So I won't belabor the point for a bunch of background about Orange Barrel Media, but I did want to mention, just for the sake of context, that the way that we're envisioning this program working in Jeffrey Park is representative of projects that we've done around the country. And our thought process behind that is how can we look at different forms of media and use them as a platform to provide a broader public benefit than just pure advertising, to benefit more than just the advertiser and more than just the other commercial entities involved. If you think about any other form of media, typically the viewer gets something in exchange in terms of programming benefit for viewing advertising. So you can watch the Super Bowl on basic cable in exchange for sitting through the advertising. Similar concepts in every other form of media. Historically, outdoor advertising has not offered the same programming benefit. So we have grown to the largest privately held national media company as a result of our investment in the arts and community messaging and other things that provide a sort of public benefit. So while this may be classified as a billboard under the existing code, our intent is that it be much more, that it offer, again, a much broader public benefit in the form of art programming. And so we've provided some other examples of projects where we've executed this. The image you're seeing here is in the Atlanta Arts and Entertainment District, where we have funded independent permanent commissions using the revenues from digital advertising on signs both on-site and off. There are a couple other examples in the deck. Some in West Hollywood, where the Sunset Spectacular is actually the only public gathering space on the Sunset Strip, which is traditionally very vehicular oriented. And what we've done is incorporate the advertising into a larger architectural structure and provide a gathering space within the unit and in the area surrounding. Food trucks can pull up. This is a project with the city of West Hollywood to convert what was formerly just a city-owned parking. We've provided some other examples from Atlanta, from Charlotte. Our intent with these signs is to commission work from both emerging artists and nationally recognized artists, with the intent being that we provide a sort of high-level, high-quality public art program to engage the public and also offer a platform to sort of elevate the voices of local artists who otherwise might struggle to find a platform where they get this much exposure in such a short period of time. The benefit of working with digital signage is that it allows us to do that very seamlessly. So the art can be incorporated on a regular basis alongside the commercial content, as opposed to a static sign, which generally only hosts one message for the entire duration that it's up. So a little bit about this specific project. We've included a couple of representative examples of artists with a nexus to Columbus. Our vision for the murals is that they always have some nexus to Columbus, whether the fact the artist was born and raised here, trained here, or otherwise. Inka Essenhigh is one artist who trained in Columbus, ultimately moved on to go on to a very successful career in New York City and has exhibited all around the world. This is the type of artist that we would recommend debuting the murals with. And again, all of this art would be procured by Orange Barrel and would be funded by media. And then turning to the digital signs. So our intent is also to offer these up as a canvas for public art, whether that ties into the existing mural display or it's an educational piece directing folks to the website for the artist, for example. There are a lot of different opportunities to show not only pure art, but also to promote institutions that support those artists and the artists themselves. So turning quickly to the commitments on programming. So this is an important part of our program. We intend that for every sign that we build, every digital sign, that 10% of the time at minimum is devoted to the display of public. In addition to that, all unsold time, so anytime there's vacancy on the sign that is not sold to an advertiser or not otherwise being used for community messaging, we would also devote that to on top of that baseline 10%. We would commit to procuring a site-specific commission for the site, at least one specific commission per year, plus additional exhibitions. So we have a national rotating program at all of our signs around the country that would present an additional opportunity, for example, using that vacate time to bring art that was commissioned elsewhere to Columbus. And then additionally, outside of this minimum 10% commitment, another 10% of the time on the sign would go to Thrive as the property owner to promote their on-premise business and activities in Jeffrey Park. We would also commit to a donation of $50,000 per year in ad revenue to the 5-4 SID to help fund their public art and placemaking initiatives. And our intent is that that would be contributed to the general public art fund and would be used and deployed around the entire neighborhood, not just at the specific site. For the murals, static murals covering the garage, we would commission a new work to go in here at least every 24 months. But the intent would be to have it be a more significant commission that is a long-term project in order to incentivize the types of cooperation we would need and participation we would need from artists to get excited about a mural of this size. A couple more comments on the operational commitments, because I know there, both in the business meeting and the prior meeting, there was some concern about how do we understand what the content mix actually looks like? How do we ensure that it is, that the art investment or focus is there? So as a condition of our approvals, we would certainly be willing to accept memorializing these operational commitments to the value. A minimum of 10% art at all times. And in addition to that, all unsold time to go to the public. On top of that, I think there was some question about content standards. So as a product of our lease with the property owner, we have certain content restrictions in place, which would prohibit any sort of adult entertainment businesses from being advertised on the sign, tobacco products, obscene content or nudity, hate speech or discriminatory content, or any ads that are otherwise in violation. So those are the baseline content restrictions. But then on top of that, we have a certain element of discretion in terms of the way that we operate the sign. So our in-house sales team and our creative team regularly work with advertisers to encourage them to develop creative campaigns, atypical advertising, so more image focused, for example, rather than very small text. In addition to that, I think there was some question about how do we ensure that over time these commitments don't fade. Again, we would certainly be willing to accept these as conditions of our approval, but beyond that, the economics of the sign really dictate that we command a premium rate for the advertising. The capital expenditure for the signs is likely to exceed $2 million, and as a result, our thought process is that if we keep the rates high and ensure that we can recover a return on our investment, we're then also better funding the continued investment in the artwork. And on top of that, thought process is that at minimum, we are ensuring that we're not immediately going to go submarket and try to sell as many ads as humanly possible. And because it would be a condition of our approvals, that baseline community content and art requirement would always exist. So that we're actually only operating on less than 75% of the total sellable time on an average basis that we're actually selling to advertisers. So for that reason, we need to command a premium rate. But we need to ensure that we're attracting premium advertisers to funding this. So in our last meeting, there was some discussion about the impact on the neighborhood and the signage guidelines for the district. And so we did want to comment on that. We added a few pages to our application, sort of reiterating what is unique about this project. There was some concern about creating precedent for additional signage that could ultimately collectively be detrimental to the neighborhood. From our perspective, it's a very unique sign. The signs are oriented exclusively out of the district. So this is a borderline parcel on the edge of the district with the signs being oriented towards the highway, which is, again, going to be mostly just vehicular traffic passing through the area. So we found a way to sort of promote the district and promote the broader downtown area without impacting the experience within the district from other properties. In addition, one of the things that we wanted to point out is that from a commercial standpoint, it's not just a question of which signs or which buildings could potentially host advertising in the future, but also in what areas would that even be commercially viable. So we did do an analysis. We looked for both feasibility in terms of blank walls that could host this amount of signage, and that could also support the level of investment that we're making, not only in the signage itself, but in the art. And we ultimately found very few, if any, locations that could work for this type of signage. We did identify one blank wall space nearby on 670 on, I believe it was Poplar, but that was ultimately a small residential unit where the commercial viability of the sign didn't exist. So from our perspective, when you look at all the conditions that would be attached to this approval, when you look at the placemaking effort that's entailed in both the large format mural art that's 100% dedicated to art at all times, and the art program on the digital signs, those sorts of conditions create a signage program that is unlikely to be replicated anywhere else in the district. The other thing we should mention is that from a media company perspective, it's not in our interests to see this proliferate. In areas like Times Square, which is always the example where folks make the point that we don't want our neighborhood to be Times Square. Frankly, we don't want Columbus to be Times Square either. You reach a certain point of saturation and the value of the advertising and the ability to support these types of investments naturally decreases. So our goal is not to have a creeping precedent that allows additional signage. So just to address the comments that were raised in the business meeting about the visibility from the adjacent property. So that as a property that's being developed by Thrive, is owned by Thrive. And I will let Matt speak to this, but I think from Thrive's perspective, as a common owner between the two parcels, that is an issue that they're prepared to deal with. They see as a leasing issue ultimately for the residential units. But beyond that, there are some commitments that we can make that may mitigate some of those issues. There was a suggestion that we orient the sign on the south side of the building. We looked at doing that, and it's not going to be feasible from a design perspective. Number one, because I think from Thrive's perspective, those windows are critical to leasing the office space, and the view from that side of the building is critical to doing so. And then separately, it would require significant redesign to eliminate a number of those windows. In addition, from our perspective, it wouldn't be viable as digital signage because the view from the highway would be compromised. It would be parallel to the highway rather than perpendicular. Typically, we try to cite signs perpendicular. I mentioned some commitments that we could make to mitigate the impact of the lighting from the sun. So we did an analysis, and it looks like it'll be about 20 units, about 7%.
Yeah, it's 6%.
6% of the total number of units in that building that would have visibility of the sign and potentially be impacted. So one thing that we do in every market, we commit to a lighting complaint resolution process. So we have a dedicated email address that's operational 24/7, that to the extent there's a complaint about the lighting on the sign, a nearby resident who can see the sign can submit that complaint to the email address. We would obligate ourselves to respond within 24 hours. And part of our response would be to check the operation of the sign and make sure that it's operating within the intended parameters. We are bound by a section of city code that regulates brightness of internally illuminated signs. So one of the things we would be checking is to make sure that the sign is operating within those parameters. We set the baseline brightness of the sign, and then it adjusts using an ambient light sensor so that it will be in compliance at all times. On the third complaint of that nature, we would also submit to a self-compliance process or a self-audit process where we go out and measure the sign brightness using a light meter to confirm compliance with city code. Separately, the city has the ability to go out at any point in time and measure the brightness to confirm that we're compliant.
There's a lot of stuff. I think we at least need to get into it, and then if we have other questions. If everybody's okay up here, I kind of have the feeling it might be beneficial for us to split the digital graphics separate from the hard graphic art. Is that okay? As a discussion, not as a motion, just to talk about it. So it seemed like we had less concerns on the first or on the second part rather. So let's just talk about, since it's open, I think it's an easier discussion. Let's just talk about these art pieces as far as the rotating art pieces first, and then we can go back into the digital. If you need to talk about both of them at the same time, I get it, but might make it a little bit easier to go for. Shannon, you want to dive into this one?
I have no comments. I think these are appropriate screening.
Okay, Ben.
I really like the mechanical sort of approach to this, and your comments about that it's a local artist producing it. It certainly provides tangibility that's attractive, I think, to this group and maybe the city in general. But that said, I think this site has an a unique industrial sort of history, and it's perhaps too bad that we don't celebrate that a little more. And I'm just going to show you broadly an image that I will say for the record is what they call the United Airlines Hangar Mural, which I believe is out east, designed with pentagram. But it's basically a industrialized or sort of mechanical type of drawing of an airplane. And the point being is that it could be that while that is handsome, that it's not inappropriate to be thinking about things that are a little more contextual to the site, and wondered if that had been considered, and if not, please do. The other thing is I just kind of had a question about this and the other stuff in terms of life cycle. So in other words, how long is a given image expected to last and the hardware on it and things like that.
Yeah, could you remind us, these are gonna rotate every how often, the ones on the garage?
After 24 months.
24 months, so 2 years.
And so when we say they rotate, we're talking about just the same image or same collection of art, the same collection of images from the same artist or different artists? Remind me again?
It would be different artists.
Different artists. So this is just a representation of what may be happening over the next 10 years. And that if anything, we can talk about the sort of what are the drivers for the content and, you know, maybe even the colorization, things like that. But that said, I am largely supportive of this proposal.
I remember this. I love it. But I also remember that I was curious about the material, and it's a vinyl or something. And understanding, you know, the characteristics of vinyl. I still have this thing in my head where every 24 months, I want this and I want to cut it up and give it to schools so they can do something with it. And something, because it's not going to recycle. So anyway, that's kind of a pie in the sky kind of thing, I know, but I think it would be an interesting opportunity for you, because you do so many of these types of applications with vinyl, to think about that upcycling or what would happen to it after its useful life. That's just an idea, but I love it. I think it's great, and I appreciate the idea that it will change every 24 months.
Well, I'm going to be the hot spoiler. I have thought very hard about this, and I need to express an opinion. It's also some of the voices from the society again. I feel like we've gotten to a point that wasn't where we started this table. When we first saw this garage and all the ramps and all the cars and everything, we specifically said it needed to have an artful side to it. And we mentioned what the James has done, or the parking garage up at Ohio State, or other structures. So putting the murals on the side, 100%, but it seems like we keep hearing the only way the economics work is then we have to buy these billboards that are an issue that I am very concerned about. Presidents, setting precedents. Can't you just imagine that Ron Pizzuti will come in with wanting something on the back of the Meridian and all the rest of it, and we will have advertising, which we have as a body worked for at least 16, 17 years to not have in our neighborhood. So let's back up. One idea would be, couldn't we have title bands of sponsors of these panels? That could be a revenue source. It would simply be a line that it's Chase or something else. Would only project to the outside of the village, not the windows of apartment buildings and other things day and night. So I wish that we would come back with another concept and say, yes, these murals, or the idea of murals, that is what we asked for something. The owner or the developer has come back, though, with an economic situation that has advertising associated with it. Does that point, do you hear that, or?
Yeah, I hear what you're saying. Yeah, but as
And
far
it
as.
was interesting when you want to split it into two parts, the idea of murals changing, supporting Ohio residents and all the rest of that. But let's figure out a way that these might have a title band or a sponsor that would allow some sort of quote revenue to fund this piece, but not by putting the digital board on the other two buildings.
It's true, I didn't quite get that connectivity, so
I'm sorry?
I didn't quite get the connectivity of the revenue of one supplying the
Yeah,
ability.
it has to be a package, the way it's being presented.
As far as this actual screening approach, I have no further comments. I'm fine with this portion of it, so. Okay, so let's get into the digital boards then. Would like to be.
I think our guidelines are clearly stated. We are commissioners that need to support those guidelines. And this does not. These are neighborhoods, not downtown, not medical buildings like the example of Lynn, not Times Square, not, as you brought up. It's not, I was just out in Los Angeles, I saw that project. Great out there, but not in our neighborhood.
What do you think?
Well, I remember my response to this one too, and I thought, understanding that folks here at this table who live in Italian Village, I don't. So taking that into consideration and the feelings, an understanding of where they might be coming from. I personally do like them personally as a commissioner. If they don't meet the size requirements, et cetera, then I can't honestly support them if they don't meet the guidelines. But personally, I really like the concept. And I think the fact that they face away from the village is just, I think that Italian Village is trying to become more progressive with all of the art installations everywhere. We talk about having quirky signage and making signage more artful. Well, I think I do understand the concerns about how the advertising would be controlled. And if there were some way to, I hear what you're saying, it kind of goes over my head, but conceptually, I like it, but I have to have some connection to the idea that this might not be something that people in the Italian Village would welcome. You put it in German Village, I feel like it's just.
Like to see that go through.
That would be quite a hearing. Shannon, what do you think?
I am more comfortable. I think I'm the one who started calling it the man and woman, since they don't have numbers, with the man, because it does not face any residents. That doesn't bother me. And I think we do, as a village, get the benefit of the income that would bring in. I do not think the woman is appropriate because, regardless of if Thrive, owns the apartment buildings that's going to be shining into, it still kind of goes against the type of atmosphere of a neighborhood that we are trying to build, or continue to build. So that's kind of my 2 cents, is that I think one is appropriate, and I think the economics of one most likely work. And so that's kind of where I stand, is that I would be good with that one.
Then we think.
I support pretty much the same sort of line, that I'm just going to rationalize that the man graphic and really all the graphics proposed on the garage are clearly in the sphere of the interstate. And I don't think that I would consider either one of those things in any other place in Italian Village. But in this context, facing that direction, fully appreciating the sight lines that you're speaking about, that man digital graphic is an ideal situation. You've got the east facing, but it's in a niche that is sort of bracketed by your patron or the people that have hired you to look at this solution. So it's a perfect scenario. It's not two different properties and so forth. The graphic the woman is on It actually doesn't excite me just from the standpoint that it feels like a postage stamp on a building. And to me, you could have had me at any sort of illumination kind of quality that makes the building shine as a architectural piece. And there are some good examples of linear LED lighting, on buildings themselves that articulate the sort of the characteristics of the building. But they're not advertising billboards, they're not revenue generating. So I know that's not what you're looking for, but suffice to say, just for the record, that it's not to say that lighting can't be used on a building that's close to the interstate, but I just don't see it being a digital rolling revenue generating kind of graphic on that location where the woman is placed.
Yeah, my big concern, coming in was sort of the short-term operation and the long-term impacts. So while I know it's not possible to completely control what goes up there, I'm feeling better after your explanation and getting a little more information here about how the graphics can be controlled within the bounds of what we're legally allowed to do right now, First Amendment, all that kind of thing. I get it. That being said, you're controlling the advertising rates, so you control the amount someone has to pay to go on there, which at least in the short term, I think does have some sort of impact, as well as things that are more specifically outlined about hate speech and discriminatory language and stuff like that. I guess I could have figured that out on my own, but it's nice to hear it articulated that that was just a concern of mine to have, representative messages on the side of the street that we're not comfortable with throughout the village. And I think it's just better to keep that as, really as advertising. And of course, the public art component is a key element of that. I agree with the concerns about that second billboard. I don't feel like it's in a location that makes, it feels like it's potentially long-term detrimental impact to not just the neighbors, but sort of the design of that building itself. And I know you have a lot big investment in this, so you wouldn't, want it to not keep functioning. But at the same time, it doesn't seem to be a part of the highway corridor, as Ben mentioned, and it starts to create a different vernacular where now we're putting big billboards on structures that are part of the village instead of putting art and billboards adjacent just next to the freeway in a super limited location. So I think I'm in the same spot that you're in. I think it's the same justifications. I don't know if I just stated them differently or if they're slightly different. The one thing, and this may open up a can of worms, and I don't know, I was trying to envision it from your renderings. I couldn't quite see that side. I don't know if there is an opportunity to do a second shorter one on the other side of the dude one. I guess I'm calling it the man one. Because that, again, conforms in my mind to the nature of the out parcelness or whatever it is in that little weird no man's land between, well, now it is a man's land, it is that particular man's land, just one man's land. That weird space in between the edge of the garage and the slope. And the other thing I've been trying to really pay attention as I drive by there, and I do think we're going to be able to see this art and we will see the screening. It is different a little bit than I imagined. I don't know about everybody else's feeling with the grades there. It does feel a little more obscured than I thought in some ways, yet obviously it's very in your face as you come around that corner. So anyway, that's a rambling way to say I am okay with the one that's out by the thing, and of course how that integrates with the other art pieces, and potentially another one, but not in the location that that is on the building. Other comments that anybody's thought of before we turn back over to the applicant? Oh, yeah, and I guess one last thing. The other problem with that, the one that's on the building I didn't mention is, Shannon was kind of getting to it. It makes an argument right now that Thrive owns the piece across. And maybe they always will, but maybe they won't. And, I don't want to get us into a situation where we're creating an instant problem based on what we are speculating will be, and certainly we're not going to put like a condition on the approval of this that Thrive has to own certain properties in perpetuity. We can't, we can't get into all that. So it just makes me feel less comfortable, whereas the other one seems like, if you're renting an office space that's looking out over a freeway, that billboard doesn't seem shocking to me in that place, as opposed to if you're trying to live in a residence that's across the railroad tracks in a different neighborhood, frankly, and we're kind of messing with it. So that's my thought. So back to you for comments.
Yeah, I think we can talk a little bit on like what David's comments were on from a revenue perspective. In the video boards, the revenue from the video boards is to not only support the consistent art installation or program for on the garage, but also the investment into the 504 city art program. So it's to help fund art installations throughout the neighborhood, as well as those, not just one of those items. And then talking a little bit more specifically, I don't know, the comment that you made on, what's it? Oh, yeah, for the garage screening, there was a garage screening plan prior to this, and it was essentially something where we had some light art and some small see-through kind of screening on it. We were just looking for a better, fresher look at what that would look like, rather than just something stagnant and consistent with areas around Columbus where it's very boring and honestly not well done. But I don't know if there's anything specific for you guys.
So I think a couple of things. So we kind of showed you guys some examples of similar work we've done across the country. And so some things to consider is our business model is a lot different than other outdoor advertisers. And so, as you know, I heard you guys mention maybe potentially removing the one sign. So the reason why we need two signs to support this project, one, the investment on the mural is significant. So that is around maybe close to $200,000 just for that mural. So we're paying an artist and we're installing and taking the mural down. So we're doing that every 2 years. We're also trying to support the art programming for the greater community within that area. And so also the reason why one sign wouldn't work is because the way that we build out kind of our financial projections, we incorporate a lot of time, give a lot of time away for community content in art. So regardless if we have an art mural program, we're already dedicating time to communities, reduce costs for local and small businesses. So there's a lot of time already baked into this signage to help support the city's entertainment. So we don't have one sign in the country that we just sell advertisements on, and there isn't a community content or community aspect in supporting the community. So as of right now, that larger sign is over 50% of the revenue generated to support the project. So if we were to look at a smaller sign, it would significantly decrease the art investment that we can make and the mural that we're trying to present today. And so similar to what I shared with you guys during our first meeting, what we're trying to do here is something very significant and very prominent. We're looking at over 8,000 square feet of art mural in the city of Columbus. And I can guarantee you there's nowhere near that in the Midwest. And so the artists that we're looking to bring are some of the most significant artists in the country that are pretty expensive. And so this is going to be an ongoing cost and an ongoing investment, and just one sign just wouldn't support it. So if we were to look at just potentially one sign, I think that would really kind of put us back at the drawing board, because we wouldn't be able to do what we're proposing to do today. I think that, there are some things that we can consider related to, the you guys got me calling it the woman sign now.
Number up next time.
Yeah. So, I mean, I think there's some things that we can talk about to address some of the lighting issues. And so I think that, there is a way that, as Mark mentioned, we'll of course, we'll have a lighting study. We'll make sure that it's tested. But I think that we may also have an opportunity to look at, maybe we just shut it off certain hours of the night. And so, just at the, thinking right now aloud, I'm thinking maybe we shut it off at 1 o'clock in the morning and it doesn't come back on until 5 o'clock. I mean, there are ways that I think we could probably work together to kind of mitigate some of these issues. So I don't know if there's anything you want to add to.
Just in terms of the mix of costs associated, so just to clarify that a little bit. So we're looking at the honorariums for the artists. We're looking at curatorial fees to the extent we work with an outside curator or institution. And that's for the murals themselves. We have the printing costs in order to produce the around 8,000 square feet of murals. And then in addition to that, we have the artist fees for the digital art as well. One of our goals is to make sure that we're always compensating artists fairly for the work they provide to be part of our projects, and truly making it a platform to advance their interests rather than teasing the idea of exposure to a certain number of eyes in exchange for undercompensated or free work. So to the extent you're looking at how the financial picture works out between all these signs, there are a number of different aspects that we would have to go back and look at if the revenue to support that were reduced.
And just give in ballpark, you said it's like $200,000 to replace the murals. That includes both of them.
All one mural. So we're removing them and replacing them with new murals every 24.
Right. So it's $200,000 over 24 months.
Right?
Yeah. I mean, again, I don't know if this is the right answer or not, but kind of goes back to a little bit. It sounded like what you were mentioning, David, on some of the other garages in town. I mean, is there an option where it's a permanent screening that is an art commission screen that maybe costs 3 or 4 times that much to install, but then it's just there, and then we're never spending $200,000 again to do it. Just, maintenance at some point. I'd be okay with that. I think it's cool that it changes every 24 months, but that's not the thing that's making me super excited. I mean, if it was something that was cool all the time.
I think the thought there was really creating this platform for
Yeah, I agree.
artists with the nexus to Columbus to have access to. I think that's really, so making a permanent installation kind of takes away from that. And so
Yeah.
the one thing that we really want to do here, because Columbus is our hometown. As Mark mentioned, we've grown to become the largest privately owned media company in the country. And a lot of folks don't even realize the significance of the work that we do. So this is literally the first major project that we've done across the country that we want to bring home to our hometown. So it's really important to us. We want it to be the best. We want it to be done right. And we want to celebrate Columbus and artists with the nexus to Columbus. So, that was kind of the genesis behind having that art rotating every 24 months. And I can just tell you now, just based on conversations we've been having as of recently with artists across the country, when we're showing them these designs, they're literally lining up. They're like,
sure.
Well, what year do you think we can get in and get on this sign? So.
On the other hand, I think you could make the argument that the billboard itself could be, because then you can get on there as often, and you can leave it up as long. So, I think that's also, at least conceptually, if there was, if of the 10% of the sign, it's one particular artist for a particular amount of time. Like, you're going to be up there as 10% of the time for a year or for 6 months or whatever. I think that could also be, in my mind, a pretty significant way to launch that as well. So I don't know. I think it's just in between for me. I don't know any other opinions out here that you guys.
Just worried about the total agenda.
No, I know. It's important.
Well, I support what you're saying, that if crunching the numbers requires a little less aggressive change out, I think that's, it fits our mandate that we're just trying to get a better looking garage interface and so forth. And that everything else above that you spoke about, which I appreciate, is fantastic, but maybe exceeds what we can accomplish in this. And the other thing I'm just going to say is I will entertain a second location for a second billboard, but it's just not going to be that. The lady, and it might be that you have to go back and talk to Kaufman and look at a different location in a niche where you can obstruct windows or something, or it's on a different facade that you capture as you're heading eastbound from the west. So, and that I think if you get away from the rectangles and think about more sort of artistic ways of implementing digital sign elements, it could also capture the imagination, at least in the one.
Big arrow around the corner. That's kind of where we are, I think. And David is right. We do have quite a few things to go through yet tonight. So I'm not sure where that leaves us. I'm sorry,
Early
Steph.
towards maybe continuing the application if we're not ready. Is that what I'm hearing?
Yeah, that's great. do you feel like you've gotten the information you need and you're comfortable with us taking a motion to continue and then coming back next time? Yeah. Okay. Any other questions for us before we move? To continue.
So it sounds like it's really just, the consensus is really just the woman board.
It sounds like the consensus of the people who are here today.
It's one missing.
So
Yes.
I do have one question.
Yeah, please.
You made a comment earlier about it not fitting within the guidelines based on size. And so are we in consensus today that is no longer an issue? Because I think based on our last conversation, you guys talked about time. Often you guys have approved things that don't specifically fit within the guidelines. So is that still an issue or concern?
I personally don't think we have an accommodation for this type of sign in the guidelines. And I defer to your logic and to what Ben was saying earlier, which is really the same thing, that I think it is extremely limited where this kind of thing could go. I can't envision another spot where we'd be able to accommodate it. And so I think that we have a little bit of a gap there. Because if we're not really, our guidelines aren't set up to accommodate freeway frontage really. So for me, that's mine, but I don't know what other people feel.
Yeah, I think that what you included in your application was helpful. I mean, I think that that's what, whenever we do approve things outside of the guidelines, we, state why, our justifications for why that's a special consideration. And I think that this meets that. So I don't think that that's your issue.
Thank you.
Okay, do I have a motion to continue?
So moved.
Okay, all in favor of continuing? Opposed, abstentions? Okay, thanks. All right, cooking along. So where are we now? A little confused with the agenda.
We're back up to number 8 on the agenda.
Okay, sounds good. And that means that, oh, Matt, you're still here, correct? We have somebody else. All right, here we go. So if you are
What's the address?
situated, this is the same address, but it is 009 is it's a little confusing. It's number 8, but it's 009, IVC, IV 220509. So sir, if you could raise your right hand and state your name for the record,
Peter Scott,
and you promise to tell you the truth and your testimony to the best of your ability this evening.
I do.
Okay, great, thank you. So staff,
Are you ready to jump into this one?
Yeah. Everyone else is. So this is proposing new construction, this application for submitted materials. The basic massing scale and proposed footprint for the 5-story mixed-use building was approved in March of 2021 as IV 210206. There's also a conceptual portion of this application involving the tenant signage placement and sign. The tenant is unknown at this time. Therefore, the final details regarding the signage are unknown. So final details for the brand signage would need to be submitted at a later time for action review. Then at the April 26th business meeting, the commission noted the following about the application: that the mass of materials seem consistent with what has been presented so far, and that there was a lack of detail at the first level or pedestrian scale, and that a missed opportunity to apply the best type of environment at the streetscape level. Some commissioners noted they were not in favor of the face illuminated signage, noting that they already have that on the Joseph and may be okay within the 200-foot corridor of the highway, but are on the fence and will need to review the application further to come to a decision. Some commissioners asked if the brand is one name of tenant or 2 different tenants, noting that the building does not need 2 signs if it is the same tenant. And the commission noted that the more creative, the better for the brand signage. So in response to the business meeting feedback, the applicant has submitted additional renderings. And then just a staff note, the Italian Village guidelines do specify signage should not be internally illuminated, and the maximum allowable area for a wall sign is 25 square feet. So based on the commission feedback for the application from the business meeting, staff recommends continuing the application IV 2205-009-299 Dickinson Street to allow the applicant time to revise the application following that commission feedback. And that recommendation is based on the Italian Village guidelines for signage and graphics on pages 46 and 47, as well as the city code standards for new constructions.
okay, over to you.
Cool. So kind of the same building. I think Pete can talk a little bit more to the architecture side of things, but on the brand, it's just suggesting locations for where these signs will live. Obviously, we have not started actively trying to seek a tenant yet. But in that process, that's usually a crucial point for any type of tenant that depends on to occupy this building. So really, this application was not only for the architectural, the general massing, whatnot, but also just the locations of where those signs could potentially live for tenant.
Yeah, so I think since the previous, I think since the staff meeting, we included additional renderings, more pedestrian scale, and how the building and materials were coming down to meet the streetscape. It is a commercial office building. It's a steel building, lots of glass with metal panels with a two-color scheme. We have clarified some of that in some of the photo renderings as well as the list there for you. This obviously is in conjunction with the overall landscape plan. You have seen preliminary designs of that earlier on. And I think that's going to get, you saw obviously the part that's north of this building earlier today. That will be continued to be developed and finalized through the landscape submittal. But the idea of that, the perimeter around the building obviously is the pedestrian scale, how that building interacts and meets the pedestrian scale. You'll notice in some of those renderings, actually the building has balconies on the second, third, and fourth floor. So there is some human scale to the actual office building itself. So we've carved away those upper floors to help activate those and tie that a little bit closer to the streetscape. But again, it is first floor is office space, so we have to balance the public interior spaces with the public exterior, as well as the private interior spaces. So you'll see some punch windows around the north side, half of the north side, the east side of the building, a little bit more solid facade. Of course, we based on the media panel, we have a fairly large black object in the glass that kind of comes down. That our stair tower is in behind that sign. One way to balance some of that in the higher end interior office spaces as well as that circulation seemed like the obvious place for that. So overall, it is a 6-story building. I think you mentioned that the original application I think was fine, but this is a 6-story office tower. And just wanted to make sure we were clear on how that kind of the building perimeter sat and give you a little bit more information to contemplate. And I think you're seeing the brand sign as location only. It's white just to be contrast. We do not know. We're looking for approval on backlit, internally lit color. We don't have any idea of what that's going to be until that the actual tenant is there, and that will be of course submitted at that time. We're generally looking for comment and approval on placement of those things.
Placement, general size, I guess, is what you're
General size, but again, I think all of that has to come back to you.
Sure, yeah, absolutely. Okay, sounds good. Well, Brooke is our loan architect today. Would you like to begin?
I think from a scale perspective, from scale of the building, seeing the sign, the scale of the sign seems appropriate to me. And as far as the locations, that makes sense to me also, just from driving and being able to see. I know there are many top of building signs all over downtown. They need to be pretty big. So I'm okay with the scale and the locations.
What are your thoughts on the building materials and other?
I think it's very nice. Yep. I'm in favor.
Swing over, David.
I would encourage you to take off the female sign on any further renderings you're showing. There's one suggestion. The second one is, what if you took a different identification idea and put a 299 on that building? Up in that scale where you have brand, use 299. Give it as an identity, as something different, not just another name slapped on law firm on one side and a bank on the other or whatever. Again, these are in neighborhoods. They're not in downtown. I agree. We've got them all down there. That's fine. But this is a neighborhood. So I wouldn't, yeah, but I think you could create identification by using the number system.
Other thoughts on the building materials or anything?
Building materials, fine.
Okay. Jen?
I agree with Brooke. Obviously, the two signs would need to be separate companies, not the same company, but otherwise having both, is fine. I mean, I like David's idea, but I'm agnostic to what you actually end up doing since it's on the highway.
Ben?
Yeah, in terms of the signage, nothing facing the park and the broader development, but like that, but maybe facing the interstate. And just keeping in mind that it's really nice to be able to put up a 5-letter word up there and say that it looks kind of compact and nice with the architecture of the building. But, you know, there's going to be a lot of scenarios where it's a much longer name or multicolors and things like that. So I think we can talk all day long about scale and location, but till we see the actual submittal, it's kind of conceptual at best. So as far as the building goes, I think that you've done some nice things. I've mentioned this before, and I was among those who keep clamoring for human scale, but the articulation between this material and this material, the sort of pavilion level, really helps establish that scale. And there's a curve here as well, to some extent because of on the east side, you have that sort of large black plinth. It helps to break up the facade, but this is really unfortunate that with the punch outs or not, these are things that you enjoy at a much further view than when you're this young person right here. So you get a sense of scale with this. You don't get a sense of scale with this. This is slamming into the concrete slabs. And I am just going to clamor once again that that's not an appropriate kind of solution if we're trying to create human scale and applying some level of actual scale merit to this discussion.
Okay, I don't really have anything else to add. Thoughts from your side?
Well, thanks for your comments, and I agree. Well, I hear what you're saying about the corner and the glass kind of coming down. If you could go back an inch or two, that image is fine. The main entry to the residential is to that, just past that tree to the right there, where the building has been lifted up and is a full glass surround. So that mass is floating. There's a stair tower that's coming down that kind of protrudes out just to the right where that hand is on the screen. So what we were doing on picking up some of that scale and that glass was kind of tying this office corner. We think that this office corner is going to, it's not the main entrance to this office tower, of course, that's pushed back, but is a prominent corner that will have potentially some, very active zones within the building. So there's a little bit more connection to the street. But I understand your comments where, having that glass come all the way down is kind of pulling that far away scale kind of too close to that pedestrian. I think a lot of that can be done through the connection and how that comes down to the ground can be softened through landscape and even the hardscape materials, which I don't have all those final in place yet. But we felt that the scale of that in conjunction with the overall bookending that this kind of office tower does on the overall development of this phase was adequate and appropriate. Kind of balanced on all of it, but there's a lot of things that we're trying to tie in and do on this particular end of this development, and we're happy to continue to look at that.
I guess two things I get I question, like could the glazing color change of that after the first spandrel or could there actually be a setback without foot without destroying your concept?
We have that. I mean, we have it on the non-glazing. So if you scroll around through some images, you'll see that this right there, that setback on the left there.
Right.
Just again to help create that scale. There's some lighting there, so it'll at night those panels will get lit up.
And that was successful. I'm just saying that even with the same material, instead of changing the material, that it allows that sort of overhang to occur.
Yeah.
I don't want to make it too much of a discussion. I'm saying.
No, I don't disagree with it. I don't disagree with the comments. I think that it's balancing that with everything else we're trying to do. So I think we have, some opportunities there for us to continue to look at without drastically changing the building design.
Are you okay with us continuing this then and also contemplating, depending on how this other billboard works out, obviously?
That's, yes.
Be interested to see some.
Well, and that
alternatives for
obviously
that.
plays in with the building design, right? So
Right.
that, if that billboard moves or changes shape or it's gonna drastically change the building, we will have to come back and continue this
Right.
discussion. We would never just leave the big blank wall.
Right.
Or screen, so, and that may influence, if depending on how that decision goes, that will most likely influence what that zone is, right? How those punch windows, we have a stair running through the building there, so that's gonna influence our building design, but, we're trying to work and balance that screen within the overall design.
From a marketing standpoint, do you see this being a multi-tenant building?
Our hope would be that it would be one tenant,
Right.
but I think that's.
The other
great,
issue is,
but-
I don't think anybody in the city, if you ask them where Dickerson is, will have a clue. That's why I was suggesting the 288, brand the building so it stands out. Everybody can point to, oh, we're in the 288 building. You've seen it on the freeway. That type of thing, to me, makes more sense than a half a dozen names if it's going to be a multi-tenant.
No, and agree, I mean, the goal isn't to put up 4 to 5 different company names, that's not gonna, I mean, no one's gonna allow that, we wouldn't even bring it to you. I think the challenge is for us to at least have those locations defined so that they can go out and market that, because as a company, I wanna know that I can do that. And that's gonna be a deciding factor for me to come here and invest into this neighborhood. So I think it's us trying to generate the sandbox, which we can work in, and understanding your thoughts on where those signs can be put so that we can come back to you with whatever those signs are, and obviously then have those discussions about,
It's more
how much
neighborhood.
character, how neighborhood, what those characteristics. We're not looking for approval on characteristics. It's more general location of saying this is, we would never, I think you made never on the north, but maybe east and south would be okay. Those types of, things that we can help at least then go talk to potential.
And if, by the way, you think that the landscape and the streetscape design is going to contribute to the sense of human scale, then that's
I think it's-
just to bring that to the next
I
meeting.
mean, this building isn't sitting downtown. It's at this transition of, you're sitting, you're a highway building, you're a neighborhood building, you're in an urban, so it's trying to do a lot. And it's in a very kind of an important aspect of how it's on the site and the overall development and for the community. So I think that's a critical aspect of it. I think you're starting to see that earlier proposal on how the park, and that's coming, they pulled that sliver down to connect. You've seen our earlier concepts of the landscaping on the courtyards and how we're pulling that off, trying to connect all that tissue. How we finish the base of this building is critical to it tying into all of that.
Sure. Okay, do you have enough information for us? We continue to next month for you to make the changes necessary and any of those investigations?
I do.
Okay, sounds good. So do you have a motion to continue
So moved.
in a second? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstentions, motion carries. Okay, great. See you on.
I will
Month or
finally
two.
leave.
And you're still here?
Yeah.
Or you're not? Okay. Sounds good. Staff, where are we
Thanks.
now?
We're jumping to number 10.
Number 10. Okay, number 10 is IV 2205011, various locations at North 4th Street. Hello,
Hi.
get settled in. If you could raise your right hand, state your name for the record.
Madison Owens.
And you promise to tell the truth in your testimony to the best of your ability this evening.
I did.
Okay, great. We'll let staff jump in first and we'll go back to you.
Okay, so this is a conceptual application. The Shore North Alliance is seeking conceptual feedback for placing paint, vinyl, and/or sculptural art for separate locations along North 4th Street. In general, staff recommends avoiding painting or altering historic materials or surfaces that have never been painted, following the guidelines, city code standards for alteration, and the National Park standards for rehabilitation. Just some specific notes, the 727 North Street Wonderland location includes architectural detail such as recessed herringbone motif, vertical core belling, bell courses, as well as a previous infill openings topped with vertical brick lintels in the area proposed for the artwork. Just to note that murals should not obscure architectural features following the guidelines and the city code standards for alteration. Staff strongly recommends the vegetation engulfing the 4th Street and 3rd Avenue location be removed to prevent further damage to the building and its materials, to ensure that the gutters are functioning, the vegetation looks like it's overtaking gutters, that the building is maintained. It also looks like it's overtaking windows, doors, Want to ensure those windows and doors are not obstructed by vegetation. The building located at 851 44th Street is a historic contributing Italian building dating to the mid to late 19th century. Like the two other surviving historic buildings on the block, the building was originally constructed as two connected single-family residences. The north portion of the building shifted into use as a store by the turn of the 20th century, and the south portion of the building followed suit by the 1920s. The staff recommends avoiding permanently altering the historic 19th century material with paint that has the potential to damage the brick and trap moisture within the wall. So far as approved at that location, staff recommends installing art without the permanent alteration that paint does to historic material. So this is a conceptual application, so the commissioners should offer design feedback that can be utilized by the applicant to further refine the proposal for review at a future IBC meeting. And that recommendation is based on the United Village Guidelines, exterior painting on pages 42 to 43, murals on page 47, and in the absence of guidelines specific to the Forestry Act and Conservatory City Code, the short run design guidelines have served to important reviews for the corridor along Forestry Avenue. So it's also based on short run design guidelines murals on page 3.26, as well as the city code standards for alteration, specifically numbers 2, 5, 9, 10, and 12.
Great. You.
Yeah, so these are some of the locations that we're considering for murals, and we had previously brought them to another conceptual review, and we have feedback noted on each image from that, but we have some more specific questions that are highlighted on each image, just about more specific locations on the wall itself. And so the hope is that we could just sort of go one by one and get your feedback on if we could put paint on it, if we cannot.
All right, let's do it. So tell us about this one.
This one, I think, we previously had a conceptual review, and the idea was that you guys were not super supportive of the paint, or anything really on it, but, there is some information about how it just, that there were previous altercations to it, and so we're kind of curious what your thoughts are.
Gina, what do you think? This one?
So I'm reading here that there is not any uncoated brick on the facade. If that's the case, again, I think I would be more interested in structural. I think putting a mural here takes away from Wonder Bread, original advertising, unless it was something related to the Wonder Bread factory or, giving homage or something. But otherwise, I think in my mind, just with what's already on the building, even though it is already painted, I think structural or sculptural would be appropriate at this location.
Ben?
I guess the main thing is it seems like this is already painted, so just saying it might be more okay than some situations, A. And B, I'm just gonna throw the first volley out there that I just loathe the idea of putting rectangles on stuff. So if there are concepts, I could be more supportive of a concept that supported the Wonder Bread sign, or emanated from that corner or something.
I'm not in favor of this one, only because I think it just detracts too much from Wonder Bread Zone.
David?
No comment.
I don't have a comment on this one either. Yeah.
This one, we're sort of just curious if we could paint in that or specific location. Outlined in red.
What's new construction, I'm with that.
David, any thoughts on this one?
I'm very opposed to this one because it's residential. You didn't buy a condo to have something on it. I think that it just doesn't have enough impact, and don't think it should be put on a residential building.
Okay, Ben?
I get Dave's comments, and I'm kind of on the fence about this one. Depends a lot on the concept and how much paint you're proposing. Again, more open, graphics, typography, might be more appropriate than painting the whole thing.
Yeah, and just for clarification, sorry to interrupt, we're also open to not just doing rectangles, like we can incorporate some more creative aspects and not just cover the whole thing in paint and, you know, incorporate some historical nouns where we can, things like that.
I'm not in favor of this one either. It just feels too tight and the building already has a lot going on. It just seems like it would be a little wasted effort because of all the visual clutter that's already there.
Kind of kind of lukewarm, so. Okay, next one. Want to start this?
I would like to offer a suggestion. I think where the red line is not large enough or important enough, A. B, there was a very strong story about how this building happened. That this was on the site of the Jeffrey Mining. If you notice the long slot on the bottom, that was to go into the mines. It was a metaphor for the equipment they were building. But notice the two windows. Those are in staircases, and they could be vinyl graphics on the window, translucent, transparent. So maybe rather than that narrow slit that we're seeing here, the squares might be a better opportunity to consider an application applied to the window glass rather than damaging or modifying the structure on the end. Does that give you something to?
Well, yeah, I certainly don't think we're against any of that.
I think there's a chance for this, but not at that location on that building. But those windows of the staircase could be great.
Yeah, I mean, I think that could be a good idea. I guess my question for that would be, just since we don't have an artist picked out or a design, or, you know, we're not that far in the process, I want to be able to go back and say, you know, is this something that if we had the right design, say we had a design that you would love?
Could I give you an example? Have you walked into the Columbus Museum in the last year where they took the glass awning that takes you technically into the building and they abstracted a piece of artwork and did it in a film on the glass and it cast shadows on the walkway and everything?
I actually just recently moved here, so I'm
Okay,
not,
we need to
but-
get you to the museum.
I know.
Okay. It's worth the trip just
Yeah.
to see what I'm talking
Bring up
about.
some
But it would be an idea for those.
Okay, yeah, for sure.
I think that this whole wall, used to have this whole wall,
I think for the first one,
and then we removed it. I
yeah.
would say add it back. I've probably been the most, okay with everything, so like, I think that entire facade is appropriate to use somehow, depending on the artist you want to do with it.
The whole brick facade or the whole metal?
Oh, sorry, the whole metal facade. Yeah.
This, I like David's approach.
What do you think, Brooke?
I think David's approach is pretty good. I'm not in favor of where it is.
Yeah, I think David's approach makes sense, and then if there was something cool that extended on the metal, I'd be okay with that too. It's kind of hard in the abstract, so. Okay, next one. Let's start this.
Such Curry Cooper. I think I'm okay with this one. I think it should be bigger than just the square that's here. If you're gonna do it, I would do it big.
In terms of paint, because previously, I don't think you guys were super supportive of paint in this location.
And no, I think not paint.
Okay. But for a banner or vinyl.
I'll agree with Brooke on that.
No problem.
Okay. 2, 3 more.
Question.
Well, ask your question, please.
What's the question on this one?
This one, we actually have an artist call out for. You guys were pretty supportive of being able to put paint on this one. I don't know if you guys have any additional comments about location or anything, but.
Would you be willing to share that on this particular one, there is going to be, the artists are going to be aware that we replace those 3 limestone pieces at the top that were on the original building, and we're saying they don't have to, but they might want to incorporate that thunderbolt somehow in their submittal, which would tie into the historic reuse of some of the materials that were on the building originally.
Gotcha.
Yeah, so I mean, whatever they come up, I mean,
It isn't required, but it was just a suggestion to the applicants to pick up on some of the history.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think we're always in favor of putting in a nod to the history of the community and building, where we can, for sure.
Really excited when that sidewalk's back in. I'm more excited about than anything for that location.
RH 19.
Yeah, wait, on that previous one, is it's horizontal or vertical? Are we?
We put, well, it's gonna depend sort of on what the, artist calls bring back, but we did put in the entire L location for, calls for artists. But obviously it's gonna come down to what the artists come back with.
I just don't think it should be the entire L. I think it's gonna be one or the other.
Well, let's just see what they come back with at this point. It's not our fault. So.
Okay, what is this one?
What
I see it, yeah. Okay, thoughts on this one?
Steel?
Oh, well, different application, but
It'd be okay if they buried the telephone wires also.
Such a cost appropriate recommendation. It's good 1 for 1 right there.
so no from Brooke. What do you think? What do you think, Shannon?
I just think it's not impactful. And I think that's actually kind of a cool historic building right there that I wouldn't want. The other side of the building,
But you can't see it because 4th Street.
well, why are we doing this for cars? I mean, people walk up, what is that,
Correct.
First.
So the other side of that building, on First is a prime location, and I believe we reviewed that location a few different times, and then they dropped it because they wanted it to be advertising for their business. But I think that we were supported for art on that side of the building. So I would continue to be supportive of art on that side of the building. And again, I do want to say that now that I think about it, we are seeing a lot of auto-centric mural locations, and I would like to see locations picked out that are turning the corner and that are for pedestrians walking the other direction. It's gonna look ridiculous if I mean, really, like, I know you can't visualize that, but it truly will look ridiculous if all you have is art going north and nothing going
Let's pull
south.
it back over here.
Yeah, I mean, it's just, and this corridor is gonna be such a pedestrian corridor in a few years, and it already is. I mean, it's actually kind of wild already. So, that's not what we're talking about, but.
Anybody else have thoughts on this one? I don't. I'm not super excited about that. Okay, so last. You said?
I'm fine with this one.
Ben?
Yeah.
Brooke?
Yep.
David? Yep, no comment on this one.
You're
Okay,
good with this one for paint.
yeah, no comment on me. Everybody else seems.
That was the last one.
Yep.
Good, that's one.
Okay, anything else?
No, I think that's it.
All right, thank
Thank
you very
you.
much. Appreciate it. Okay, conceptual no vote needed. So are we moving forward to 11 or somewhere else? All right. IV 220512 North 6th Street in Detroit Avenue. Abstain from this one. You got it?
Are you seeing for this one?
Yeah, swear on
Oh. Raise your right hand, state your names for the record.
Brad Parrish.
Colin Carter.
Swear to tell the whole truth, to the best of your ability.
I do.
Great. Scott?
Okay, this is a conceptual application. The applicant is proposing new construction infill situated between North Sixth Street and Detroit Avenue. Parking would be located behind buildings. landscaping would include trees, patios, and retaining walls. So the site currently consists of a low grass lot with immature trees and stone curbing along 6th Street, a former church and single-story commercial building to the north of the site. 2 1/2-story residential homes are present to the west and south of the site, and grassy lots for proposed residential developments are located to the east. At the April 26th business meeting, the commission noted that there appear to be 4 or 5 different treatments or categories to the buildings, and asked if the different categories of buildings could be reduced down to 2 or 3 treatments to simplify the types of buildings. The commission noted they were supportive of the townhome versions. The commission asked how the trash will be handled, noting that it looked like there was a shared trash enclosure. They noted that this site is surrounded by a single-family residential and should be responding to the street better. Some commissioners felt the proposal was underwhelming and would encourage the use of front porches and similar to allow pedestrian and residential interaction and to avoid the front being just a large walk as been licensed to the neighborhood. There are some separations from the street view that elevated lawn areas and retaining walls and sizing of buildings. In response to the business meeting feedback, the applicant has submitted revised renderings that include labels. So this is a conceptual application, so the commissioners should offer design feedback that can be utilized by the applicant to further refine the proposal for review at a future IBC meeting. So no action is required. The general recommendations are based on the standards, city code standards for new construction.
All right. Sorry, I keep forgetting that. I'm like, we're Jason.
Well, yeah, thank you for seeing us. On behalf of the developer, we are thrilled to finish out this parcel in conjunction with the Bethany Church and then tie in the synergies with the future Luso project that is recently broken ground. And we're just thrilled to get this project up and running.
So when we started working with Lichens on this site, we really kind of looked at both the 4th Street treatment as well as the corner behind Bethany Church. So knowing that starting at the 4th Street and knowing the north, there are sort of a row or townhomes there or single family homes with sort of 2 stories. We wanted to kind of mimic that and carry that along with townhomes that would have subgrade garden level units. So we would get 10 units total along on 4th Avenue. Again, trying to establish a rhythm because the buildings to the north do have sort of a rhythm that is played out with it. And so kind of carry that along to the townhomes. Then looking, turning the corner here on 6th Street, looking at the Bethany Church, we wanted to sort of tie in from that sort of the existing church structure and the addition that was done on the back and kind of and really create a 3-story structure. So it is a walk-up product, but our intention is to not create a walk-up product, but more has sort of vertical sections in the design that responds more to the neighborhood. We can see the Russo project on the north there, and we were intentionally keeping the height of the building so that it wouldn't tower over the Bethany Church and over the project to the north, but rather extract horizontal lines from both. In the materiality that we selected, with understanding the Bethany Church, we would like to select a brick that is very similar to that. It has sort of a break with the sort of charcoal black logs back and sort of create that rhythm along 6th Avenue as we get to the corner. And then we turn again, and again, creating a rhythm that continues on to the project to the north here. We did elevate this site. The site is naturally elevated about 3 feet. And our intentions, if you go to the last slide, please, to talk where labels the patio, was to sort of create these stoops and patios that are accessed by the 1st floor units there. So I think the axometric, please. It's the addition sheet. It's all the way in the back. Yeah, that perfect. Yeah, you can see how all of those are accessed from the unit within and sort of create, still the public walkway, but also that sort of pedestrian connection with the patios there. We also do have a building entrance off of that, which is the far west location that provides access to the parking through the building, but still sort of is part of the architecture that's adjacent to it. We are keeping the alley that separates the Bethany Church because there are two garage access points there. But the intention is to restrict access to that parking lot and create an amenity patio on the back side of that. All access will be again to the north of this on that alley that exists currently in a parking lot. We also have a shared access agreement with Bethany Church to get on Fourth to go north. That is also where the trash will be located for the two parcels. So I think with that, I did forget to mention that the first townhomes the front townhomes along Fourth are looking to have rooftop access as well to give some downtown views. And that's sort of the penthouse feature that you see on the town. So with that, I will leave questions aside.
I wasn't here for your first presentation of the concept. What percentage of these are going to be for sale?
0%.
This is market rate. These are market rate.
Okay, so all of these are rentals. That's good. Society was very concerned.
That is not a
I know. But I just
appropriate
wanted to.
metric for us.
Can we go to the elevation of this, the 3 units at the end? May I offer a suggestion that the lintels and sills be of limestone or some contrasting material to keep more in the architecture style? It looks like they're colored the same way of what might be a stucco or some type of.
It's a brick material.
But I would like to encourage, at least on these front facades, that you articulate the lintels more. I personally like the elevation that you've created. When I think of many places in the village, you have to walk up a set of 3 or 4 steps to get to the front doors and things. And I think that has a good neighborhood feel to it. Nice way to break up that street line.
Anything else? No? Okay.
But I think this is the second package that my drawings don't match for some reason. But I'm right there. I appreciate what you're doing, and I like the relationship to the church. And however, I'm a little underwhelmed overall. I think that east and north elevations are maybe lacking some detail, maybe. Just a little more attention to those two elevations. And I would agree with David on the material choices for your sills and lintels. And I know that this is not a landscaping submission, and when that happens, I think that would help a lot. It just that feels very underwhelming. So that's what I have to say.
Ben?
A couple quick questions. How many units?
So the front townhomes on it's 10 units in that building on Fourth and 40 units on this back building,
50 units?
50 units total.
And is this all slab on grade?
Yes.
Can we scroll down to the subgrade patios? I thought I understood or saw.
What page?
I don't know, one of the renderings.
Yeah, the front has gardens, garden units, sunken garden units.
Keep going. There. So this is facing,
West.
no, that's facing north. That's on Fourth, that's on Fourth, yeah, that's on Fourth Avenue. And so this is, a basement or foundation building. Well, I'll just move ahead and say that, first of all, this particular elevation on this street is not bad. It establishes a rhythm, establishes a reasonable scale. It allows you to achieve 3 stories without as much height. These are good things for the streetscape in the neighborhood and the context. Kudos. If we could scroll back up or to some of the other renderings, that you could stop at the one just above. Or we can just stay here. Okay. So these that are fronting Detroit, I believe.
Yes.
Again, good rhythm, feels like it's responding or dialoguing with the streetscape and other homes that are in the area. The raised kind of, I don't know, front yard and the fact that the whole thing is above street level, I think is fine. Also, is a contrast, but of course now we're at greater height. And I'm not sure how I feel about that as far as the architectural style and some of the details that have been spoken about. I'm going to just defer and wait. I can see the potential. But what I think is inappropriate is that we get down here, it starts to feel like an office building or industrial kind of motif. And of course, we've allowed that kind of motif to occur. But to have this alternating and broken up sort of fractured puzzle is not something I've ever been very fond of. And while it's perhaps, you could argue it establishes kind of a rhythm by itself, it's just really too many parts. You don't need that many parts. But probably more importantly, it's just the fact that we can tell that this corner is an apartment building or some other kind of structure instead of a home. You know, the individual walk-up entrances of these smaller townhome-like proportions is so much better for the streetscape. So, so kudos to the stoops, to the sub-break patios, to the rhythm. Not fond of the corner, and think you can reduce the number of kinds of motifs that are going on. To Brooks' point, the north and east elevations are really not very good. They're very parking lot or sort of detailed, you know, not very responsive to what the rest of the architecture is doing. So I think there's some good things going on here and some things that you need to go back and draw.
I do appreciate the labeling. I think there were areas that I didn't realize I thought they were just retaining walls and realized they were unit patios. So I agree with Ben that more of that, the better. It kind of gets lost on the corner a little bit. Definitely agree with all the hardy on the east and west elevations. I'm fine with the height and with the rooftop patios ideas. It's fine as well. Get everything?
That's that.
By the way, kudos on keeping the alley. It's a good stuff.
Okay. That was just conceptual, right?
Yeah, it was conceptual, so this was the feedback I was looking at for at this time.
Thank you.
I do have one question. Why not just homes? Why do we always have, do we have to have apartments here?
Economics, and again, that is not within our purview and we're not going to consider that conversation.
We have lot coverage, we have height, we have rhythm, we have all kinds of things.
Yeah, use that is allowed in this zoning district is not something that we can, they are by right allowed to make these rental units, and that's not something that this commission
Okay,
can.
forget about the rental part, just individual structures.
I know Jason allows it, but he's not here.
Okay,
Yeah.
again, in light of time, could we move on? Are there any other comments? Obviously, this will just be continued.
So,
Thank you very
Thank
much for
you.
your time today.
Thank you.
Can you send Jason back in on your way out? Brad?
Yeah.
Thank you. Okay, are we,
We'd love to.
you're the only one left, right?
is this the garage near me?
Yep.
I need to recuse myself from this proximity.
This is our last application. Yes. You can scoot if you want.
Bail it out.
I may, because this appears to be something I need to recuse myself.
All right, seems reasonable. Okay, so let's get you sworn in. If you'll raise your right hand, state your name for the record.
Tracy Parks.
And you promise to tell the truth in your testimony to the best of your ability this evening.
Yes.
Okay, great. Let's hear from staff.
Okay, this is a conceptual application for new construction. The application is proposing to construct a 19 by 28, 2,062 square foot garage. The garage would have two 20-foot long shed dormers, each with 4 windows, hardy plank siding, dragon or Paulownia trim, Certainty or Owens Corning shingles from the approved shingles list, a clopay 16 by 7 foot wide garage door, 36-inch 9-light man door, and pillow windows from the approved windows list with seamless gutters and downspouts. At the April 26th business meeting, the commission noted the following. They wanted to reiterate that the exterior lights are not shown on the drawings. The proper one light near the van door that may be appropriate to have a light shed near the garage door. Gutters should be scaled and measured on the drawings. And commission notes they did not see eaves, overhangs, and other architectural features that would maybe be due in part to the inconsistency in the drawings. The commission will need to see more detailed drawings for the windows, as there's very little information on the windows shown on the drawing. A more distinct soffit may help the general eaves situation. There appears to be a fairly significant slope drop-off that should be included in the drawings, as this may affect the site. It's strange to see the dormer aligned with the exterior wall, and we want to see this aligned similarly with the example provided that shows a setback from the roof edges. The commission suggested taking a look at adjacent examples and using cues from neighboring garages to readjust, in particular how the eaves project on the edges and around the sides. In response to the business meeting feedback, the applicant has submitted some revised drawings. In general, the commission may need to discuss the paired garage doors versus the proposed one single wide door, and whether the applicant has confirmed that building and zoning any variances may be required for the proposed construction, and if it will be more of a carriage house with outdoor storage. So this is a conceptual application, so the commissioners should offer design feedback that could be utilized by the applicant to further refine the proposal for review at a future Italian Village Commission meeting. His recommendations are generally based on the city code standards for new construction.
Okay, over to you.
So you guys have helped me along this process. I've been here a handful of times. And I think these last additions to the set of prints meets the criteria and hopefully has answered all the questions that have been brought up thus far.
All right, let's take a look. It looks like there's overhangs are expressed. Staff, what are the other issues that we need to look at? I'm sorry, we had the
Oh, no, it's okay.
scale.
So scale and measure drawings were one of the issues
Right.
that were brought up.
Now I have.
And then there were some comments about not seeing eaves, overhangs, or other architectural features that the commission wanted to see, and we're not sure if this was just due to inconsistency in the drawings or part of the design.
Yeah.
And just need to see more detail in the drawings for the windows. And then there is a note that there's a fairly significant slope drop off, so for the site, that should be included in the drawings, out of concern that this may affect the site itself.
I see.
And then the dormer was the concern, that there was meeting the roof edge, and then the commission want to see this line similarly with other adjacent examples, it should be set back from the roof edge. The other thing the commission will want to weigh in on is the single wide door versus, the pair of doors that are typically.
Yeah, I got you on that one. So this site height, does staff have an opinion on what we need to recommend? It looks like there's an existing base that's kind of higher than the alley out there. Is that right? Is the
They're
base-
they kind of have a gravel parking spot now, but we will dig a footer and put in the block foundation. It wouldn't affect any elevation. The approach would obviously have fall to it, but
Is that actual? Here, is that what's going on in that yard? So then the whole yard is at the height of that higher where the parking? Where
yes,
the
where that
whole
gravel
thing- okay.
is.
I got you. Well, I mean, I guess you just have to deal with that with the drive approach, right?
Yeah, it's just something that the commission had brought up at the last, or in the business meeting, something that was called.
Okay, gotcha. But what's our concern level out here about the single versus double garage door?
I think we need to require the double just to stay consistent.
Which is
I'm fine with the double door, but I would ask that you do 2 goosenecks over that area. When we have those big doors, then 2, and history-wise, just so you know, we use the garage door side to add additional security lighting to these alleyways. You're contributing, and it's not that much more expensive when you're doing it.
So
I
you're
would like to talk about this elevation.
Just real quick, David, though, before you do that, were you saying you're okay with one door with 2 lights? Or 2
I'm
doors?
fine with this door.
Gotcha.
And then have 2 gooseneck
Okay.
lights.
You're fine with one door.
I'm sorry, doors, I didn't say so. Did I say 2 doors?
You did say.
I apologize. 1 door, 2 lights.
You are okay with one
And
door.
then while we're on this, what I am concerned about, especially given the slope that we're talking about, you can't just take the planking down to the bottom. We need to see some sort of, is that going to be a precasted, is that a brick, is it just concrete block? I'm not trying to dictate, but that drawing isn't what it's going to end up being.
Yeah, whatever that.
Well, the
Course
block
it's-
doesn't dictate that there's a block underneath that hardy siding under at the bottom. Is that what you're saying?
It should end, yeah, the sliding shouldn't go all the way into the ground.
Because your lot is going to slope, right?
Right.
You have the planks run into the dirt.
Right.
And are we okay with one
It
door?
said-
That homeowner has requested one door as opposed to 2.
I'm okay with it.
I think it looked better with 2 doors, but,
Notice the door swings out, which is rather unusual. It should swing into the space.
what's,
Are you talking about the man door, you mean?
Yeah,
Oh,
at least on the floor plan, it shows it swings out.
Okay. All right. One garage door is okay. I'll
If
put
you'll
2
go to
gooseneck
page-
lights over it.
And then we stand corrected. If you notice on the seven, down at the bottom, there is a note, CMU foundation wall. So that is correct. Not the elevation.
Oh, I see. Yeah, there's
But
a
then let's
detail
go
in
to the
that.
floor
Yeah.
plan one where it shows, if you go to 9, page 9, see how the door swings out, which is a rather unusual situation where the framing and everything swings in.
Whoever floats their boat, it's swinging onto their own property.
Yep.
So you want the block being shown on the elevation drawings as well?
As long as we reference that it's shown, I think, on that other drawing. That, I'm okay with that
Then that's okay. Okay.
personally, but I don't know, whatever you need, staff.
It almost indicates on the other side, directly opposite the man door, is that a window?
I don't believe they had any downstairs windows. They were all upstairs.
not seeing where there would be a window right there.
No, that's just showing where the header goes. But there's no window on the downstairs.
The symbol that's used there is indicating that that's a window.
That box.
Well, why don't in our approval, would you say no window goes there?
Okay.
Because I don't have, yeah.
This is on as conceptual staff, or do you feel like we need to have them come back with all this stuff, or, I mean, are we even able
The
to?
grade is
Great.
they're gonna need it anyway to.
Yeah, so maybe if they're coming back anyway, to have those final details rather than.
Yeah, so I guess just an understanding of where this sits in that grade, if it's all on top of that, guess that's my only question here. And so where is the edge of the alley? Is it right at the front of that picture? That's the edge. It's just confusing. How far back is it on the site? Oh, because you know that one, does it show? It's like, it's 20 feet. It's weird.
The man door faces the house. And that is all gravel in part of that. So I was standing out in the alley, taking that picture of their kind of parking area.
In plan, the door is on the side of the garage, not the back side of the garage.
So, oh, we need to get it.
Oh. I see that on page 4.
Okay, on page, yes, your page 4, yes, page 4. The door's on the side.
Okay. So
And-
there, folks.
And
Yeah,
there is a window shown on the opposite side. I bet you were right on that.
I thought so.
All right, if I'm looking at the right thing, there's not much of a grade, really. I can't tell. That photo makes it look like it's a monster.
It's not. I
Yeah,
think it's just how I was standing and it's all gravel. It might kind of give the illusion,
yeah,
but
it's really not that dramatic.
when
It's
we
like-
did our site evaluation, there was no grade issues, no additional block.
Yeah, you can, here's a picture, David, from the side. I live on my computer. So, that photo is just like really extreme, that one, that was actual thing.
I feel like,
It's the right one.
are you the garage builder?
Yeah.
Yeah, there's.
On the back in their book of the spittle for the door, clearly swings in with that casing around it, it's not swinging.
Yeah.
So we want you to change that. in the spittle.
Is that the site with the new bathroom? That's what I thought it was, but.
Oh, no,
I
it's
don't-
that. It's that one. That's the site.
With the bush?
Yeah, isn't it?
No, it's on down a little
Oh,
bit. That's the
Jeep is?
neighbor.
It's where the Jeep is, right?
Yeah.
Oh, that's not bad.
That wasn't an approved fence.
Yeah. I can't believe you said it would fit like that down.
Not like that.
That's not what he
I
said.
didn't say it like that.
He said it
Well-
couldn't be like that.
You could come up with a residential scale wood fence. A lot of nice ones. I'm not saying they will. Good.
Okay, let's finish this one.
If I add the 2 lights and on the drawing where the one overhead door is the 16-foot door and show the block underneath where my hardy siding is going to go, show that block on that drawing. Make sure the man door is on the right end and swinging inward. What else would I need to do to move on?
Remove that, the showing a window. where there's
window
not
across from the door.
Yeah, I think that's it.
Was the man door, shown on like the plan view on a different side?
Would you, while we're looking at your samples, which garage door have you selected?
She has selected the one with all the panels,
No windows?
no window.
Good, good. And what color will that be?
White.
Okay.
So, you have everything you need for actual submittal?
So if I submit that, then do I come back to another meeting?
Maybe or maybe not. You submit it, we will, once it's on the agenda, we have a business meeting, and if everything looks in order, we have the ability to move it to staff approvals,
As long as there's a quorum.
as long as there's a quorum. As long as there's a quorum, yes. That's a good point. Which we endeavor to have, but don't always have. Okay, so I think we're good. No motion needed. It's conceptual. Thanks for sitting through that. Sorry, you're in class. But when you have an actual application, you move to the front of the agenda because you're the, you have the most seniority of the conceptual application at this. Okay, staff, what else do we have today?
So to adjourn.
So moved.
Thank you all. Thank
Do
you.
you have a second?
Definitely a second.
All in favor of adjourning?
Aye.
Opposed? All right, meeting is adjourned.